Hey everybody, hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Whiskey Wanders. And today we are back in Los Angeles and doing a wander at a Costco that sometimes gets some great stuff and then other times goes for very long streaks of time without getting anything, which is this Costco in Burbank. But today is one of the days that we find an Irish whiskey that I have been looking for at Costco specifically for quite some time, which is the Gold Spot Irish whiskey. And we also see what I think is a great sleeper whiskey, one that really kind of flies under the radar, which it gets amazing reviews and not much hype, which is the Benriach 12. And lastly, a Japanese whiskey that is almost everywhere at every Costco all the time that nobody seems to be buying. The Masahiro single malt. And really so much more. Now, before we get to the video, if you like these videos, if you like the wanders, if you like the hauls, if you like the reviews, the unbottlings, the unboxings, and really all the amazing stuff we got cooking up for you, and we have tons of amazing stuff cooking up for you, don't forget to like and subscribe because it does really help the channel to grow, and we are so thankful for that. But also because you get notifications when our newest videos come out on Sundays and, sometimes in between. All right, now, let's get down to the video. All right, so while we are waiting for the Wander Vision to get warmed up and while we're waiting for me to get warmed up a little bit, let's do a real quick whiskey check-in today. I'm going to be enjoying something out of, let's do this one. Something out of Las Vegas, what we would call the new wave of whiskey, maybe a new age whiskey per se. This Smoke Wagon Rye, which I really enjoyed when we got it, and I haven't tried it too much since then. So let's revisit this here, see if we can get a pop. Yeah, I'll get it flipped over on both sides, see if we can get a pop. Not so good. And see if we can get a little juice here. Oh, yeah. And to whiskey. Because, let's face it, you can never really drink too much of it. You can only just drink it too fast. Cheers. Pretty good. New agey. All right, so first up today is a whiskey that we had found previously at Total Wine at the end of last year, and luckily at Total Wine's last year price, but we'll get to that here in a sec. But I've been really trying to find this one at the MSRP at Costco for quite some time, and it's just one of those whiskeys that I feel like Costco was hiding from us. Not literally like Jack Daniel's 12 or any of the Pappies, but it just wasn't destined up until today because we went to Costco Burbank and we found a bottle of the Gold Spot Irish whiskey. Yeah, and we got it at MSRP. In fact, I could hardly wait to get it off the shelf, so, got it out of the box. Now, the Gold Spot Irish whiskey is a special release out of Mitchell & Sons. It's one of the oldest whiskey blenders in Ireland, that's Mitchell & Sons, and like the green spot, and like the yellow spot, and the red spot, and the blue spot, oh man, the blue spot, so good. The Gold Spot is meant to celebrate the 135th anniversary of Mitchell & Sons being in business. Also, as a side note, the spots that are on the top of the whiskey jars there, those were actually meant to indicate and denote which whiskeys were inside the barrels back in the day, which is a pretty good idea when you're living in a time when not everybody is fully literate, although it doesn't really help much for those folks who are colorblind. So I guess for the colorblind folks, it's actually gray spot. Just kidding. Either way, the whiskey is aged 9 years, which is the second oldest statement in the Spots line. It's composed of both malted as well as unmalted barley, and it is non-chill filter. All the while, it is distilled in Irish pot stills from Middleton, who is the distillery. And then finally, it is composed of a blended whiskeys that are all put together that were aged in bourbon, sherry, Bordeaux, sorry for the wife, Bordeaux, export casks. The price that we can see it here at Costco is at $107.99, which is quite good. And it's really going to be the lowest that you're going to find it at, because even at Total Wine right now in 2023, you can only find it for $114.99. So I couldn't find a price at Bevmo, but I would assume it's going to be higher than that if it follows the normal kind of stratagem for Bevmo. So by buying it here at Costco, it meant that we saved $7 off the Total Wine price, or 6.48%. Also, the one thing that I did notice while looking through the game footage, at the store footage, that is, for the Gold Spot, is that the Total Wine that we got it from actually had it at a much higher price this year than last year. Because back in November, I think we found at Total Wine, it was the grand opening, because it was 2022, we had purchased this one for $104.99. And now at Total Wine, $114.99, which means that if we compare Total Wine against Total Wine from last year to this year, we can see that there was an increase of $10 or 9.5%, which feels kind of gougy to me. I don't know. I'm just saying, Total Wine. The ABV on this gold spot is at 51.4%, which is quite nice. That is exactly what I like to see, because I think like the red spots and the other green spots maybe in between like 43 to 45% range. So 51.4, a nice big step up. Tasting notes that I could find on the gold spot mention things like orange peel, buttercream, coconut, creme brulee, and a very, very heavy dessert flavor, which again, right up my alley. So, especially if you couple with the ABV, it's gonna make a real nice after dinner drink. Finally, for the review scores on the gold spot, 91 points out of 100. So again, very, very good. And if you can find it at Costco at MSRP or even at Total Wine at, a little bit more, they're all still going to be buys. So that is the gold spot, and at Costco at MSRP, definitely going to be a buy. All right, now next up is a whiskey that I have actually had for a little while, and I just haven't had a lot of time to get around to it. It's just tough. There's so many whiskeys. Oh, it's so hard. But it is going to be this Benriach 12. Benriach 12 is out of Scotland, kind of obviously. It is from Speyside specifically, and it is distilled by Benriach. It's matured in ex-bourbon, ex-sherry, and ex-port cask, so it should have a good complexity to it, and is a definite step up from its younger brother, the Benriach 10. Also, one of the other big changes over the Benriach 10, other than just the 2 years, is that the 12 replaced the virgin oak barrels that they use in the 10 with the new ex-port casks. This is another one of those distilleries that has been Lazarized, basically bought out by Brown-Forman and brought back to life. It was previously owned by a gentleman with the last name of Duffy, who also owned Longbourn, as well as Glendronach distillery. And in fact, back in the coal power days, he had a private railroad that went between all the distilleries to move the whiskeys and coal and wood and supplies around, which is pretty cool. It's basically his own personal train set, literally. The price that we see on the Benriach 12 is at $48.99, which puts it really at that kind of lower mid-range for whiskeys, or maybe the high end of low-end scotches, however you want to do that. And at Total Wine, they have it at the same price as Costco at $48.99, which always kind of makes me wonder if Benriach is not so popular, and that's why Total Wine doesn't try to jack up the MSRP on them. While, things like Blanton's you can find at Costco for $47, but at Total Wine you find them for $80. So I wonder how they really work out the pricing. I don't know if it's just like hikes that Total Wine does, but there is a big difference in cost between Blanton's or those other hype bottles, Wellers, and those ones between Benriach, which supposedly is very, very good, but the price is exactly the same. So come on, Total Wine, how does that work out? What are we doing here? Either way, the ABV on the Benriach is at a very reasonable, gentleman level of 46% ABV, which you can see right there. So it's not a lot, but it's not a little. Maybe, okay, it's a bit too little, but it's still reasonably good. And the tasting notes that I can find on it mention things like dried fruits, dark chocolate, creaminess, floral honey, figs, citrus, and a slight smoke, which is probably one of the most complex scotches that you're going to get for $48. The review scores on it do reflect that it is a real crowd pleaser at 89 points out of 100. And keep in mind, at least in my experience, a lot of the Scotch reviewers tend to be way more stingy with their points than the bourbon ones. So, for $48.99 with a great score and a complexity that rivals the complexity of trying to figure out the wife's eye movements, her secret eye movements, when she's trying to signal it's time to get out of the social gathering, this one's going to be a buy. All right, so last up for today is a whiskey that I see quite often. I mean, often. It seems to be pretty much all over the place, and I never see anybody actually buy it. I actually did see one guy pick it up and kind of look at it, and I try to telepathy to him, like, hey, man, this is not something you want to buy. But I don't really understand why, so I wanted to at least do some research and figure it out and talk about it. So, and then he put it back. Which is this Masahiro pure malt whiskey. Right now, Japan is in a weird time for its whiskey making process, because there are Japanese whiskeys that come out of Japan that are marked as Japanese whiskeys and have Japanese writing all over them. Kind of like, a college on their first semester away from home at the Japanese tattoo shop in Okinawa. Even some samurais and ninjas and things like that. Lots of Japanese livery is what I'm getting at, but they're not actually Japanese whiskeys. And this is one of those, at least I think. The problem is that there is so much obfuscation at the moment and lax regulations in Japan that allow whiskey makers in Japan to take whiskey from Scotland and put it into barrels and age it in Japan, even for a short period of time, and then presto changeo, water into wine, it becomes Japanese whiskey. Even if under their kimonos, you can still see their kilts hanging out. But because Japanese whiskeys has become so popular and there's so much money to be made, you get lots of, say, innovative ways of marketing Japanese whiskey. And the Masahiro is one of those new wave Japanese whiskeys. It's produced in an Okinawan distillery that was founded as far back as 1883. And they made all sorts of alcohol, but they didn't start producing whiskey, at least Japanese whiskey, until 2018. When they noticed that people spent a lot of dollars and euros and yen on whiskey from Japan. It is made from 100% malted barley, and interestingly enough, it is matured in sherry and oak cask for a minimum of 3 years, which is not that interesting. But the final 6 months are in first pour Jack Daniel bourbon barrels, which is kind of interesting. And I guess this is the main selling point for it, right? But it's also like saying, I did Tai Chi for the last 3 years, and I've seen every MMA fight for the last 6 months, so, I'm an MMA fighter, basically. Additionally, it has one of those key selling points that I always see a lot of like the new age whiskey makers trying to pull out to justify for the lack of aging, which is that the environment that they age it in actually makes it age faster. Like buying a fake ID makes you get more mature faster. Sure, it gets hotter and it gets colder, and that makes the age go faster, and maybe it does. Maybe it does. I'm not a whiskeyologist, but still you see it in Masahiro, you see it in the Garrison brothers, you see it in Kavalan, Amrut, and a whole lot more. It's like their main selling point is like, oh, our environment is different, so now we can skip the aging process, which I don't know, I'm still skeptical about. Those claims make my kind of whiskey senses go off. Anyways, the price that we see here for the Masahiro is not exactly cheap. It's at $53.99 here at Costco. It can be found at Total Wine for $69.99, which means that if we did buy it at Costco, we would have saved $16.99, or a difference of 29.64%. The ABV on the Masahiro is at 43%, which is pretty common for Japanese whiskey. But, let's be honest, it is a bit underpowered. And unless, the flavor palette really is there to back it up, like you see with the Hibikis and the Yamazakis, oftentimes just, something they do to try to cut money and cut expense. Lastly, as there are limited reviews on the Masahiro, because it doesn't seem like a lot of people are drinking it, from the reviews that I could find on it, they do mention things like ginger and a light-bodiedness, as well as the taste of pineapple, citrus, and white pepper. But again, the reviews that I could find seem pretty dubious in their validity. Because, somebody has to take one off the shelf first before they can actually have a review of it. So, and all these ones are in pretty pristine order. Equally questionable are the tasting scores that I could find on it that give it 85 points out of 100. So, look, on paper, same as good. It looks like it won some awards, and the scores are okay. And the Jack Daniel's barrel thing is kind of interesting and kind of cool. I'll be honest about that. It caught my attention. I don't know. For me, it's going to be a pass. Maybe I have become a bit uppity about my Japanese whiskey selection. I will admit that. But, this one's going to be a pass. And again, let me know if you've tried it. If you tried it and you really like it, let me know, and I'll pick one up and we can review it. But so far, it's going to be a permanent pass. All right, so that's it for today's Whiskey Wander at the Costco in Burbank. And I really hope that you enjoyed these videos. And I hope that you enjoy all of our videos, whether it is the wanders, or whether it is the hauls, or the reviews, or the unbottlings, or unboxings, or really all the amazing stuff we got cooking up for you, because we have tons of amazing stuff cooking up for you. And if you do like those, please don't forget to like and subscribe, because it does really help the channel, and we are so thankful for that. But also, it is good for your whiskey mojo. It pleases the whiskey gods, I like to think. And also, you get notifications when our newest videos come out on Sundays, and sometimes in between. Now, before I go, just remember, if you do find a whiskey that you love, just buy it. Because if you don't, somebody else surely will. And even in this case, might even be me. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your week. I'm out, and adios.